Hi and welcome to this new video, and this is probably one of the more difficult videos that I've attempted to do because this is quite a complex thing to demonstrate, and it's quite a complex thing to demonstrate when flying very quickly and trying to talk at the same time. What we're going to be covering is flag slaloms. So this was a request, as I say, on our YouTube channel. Someone asked me if I could do flag slaloms, and this track that I'm in at the moment, this is warehouse slalom in the warehouse scene, and if you want to get good at flying flag slaloms, then this is the track to practice on. This is a beast of a track for learning to flag slalom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fly around it so you can kind of get a feel for how this track goes. So this side, there's it's a tight slalom still, but it's loose compared to the other side. So when we get to the other side of the track and we do this side is hellishly tight. I mean, this is a really tight slalom through here, and then you get a bit of a break with a slightly looser slalom this side. And then a really tight slalom this side. Okay, so that's the track. So the question is, what's the problem that people normally have with flag slaloms? Well, it's a common problem that occurs elsewhere in FPV flying, and it's basically flying into the ground. The problem that beginners have when they fly flag slaloms is that as you do this kind of transition from left to right to left to right, you get a loss of height. And it's because, unlike doing a turn around a gate like this, where you can turn and come back the other way, and then I could turn around a flag like this and come back the other way, in these manoeuvres you've got centripetal force acting on the quad all the way through the turn, helping to hold it up. The problem with slalom is that you're doing transitions. You're going from one side and a turn to the left to the other side to a turn to the right, and as you go through the transition you lose height because the forces that are holding you up as you go through the turn are lost, and so you kind of slowly lose height and fly into the ground. So how do you combat that? Well, you can see I've turned the sticks on here because I'm going to talk about what's going on the sticks. On the throttle side of things in a slalom, it's no different to when you're doing a turn around a gate like this, or a turn around a flag. Now, you're using the throttle to just power the quad around the flag, using that power to hold the quad up, kind of settle it into the turn, and use the G-force and centripetal forces to give it lift and power it around the curve using the thrust of the props. So on the throttle side of things, that's no different. In a slalom you're doing exactly the same thing. As you bank the quad, you're using the throttle to pull the quad around the curve, and then you go through the transition to the turn the other way, and you use the power in the throttle to power it through that turn. So that's no different to any other manoeuvre where you're turning the quad, where you use the power in the props to power you around. On the right hand stick here, some different things are happening. So if you're flying into the ground, then it's very likely that you're just moving the stick left and right in order to make your turns. And if you just move the stick left and right and use the throttle to power around the turns, you will just slowly lose height through the slalom. The way you stop the quad from going into the ground through the slalom is actually by pulling in back stick. So you're holding in back stick as you're pulling yourself through the slalom, and it's not actually a lot, so it can be quite difficult to spot. The faster you fly a slalom, the easier it is to see the back stick going in. The slower you fly a slalom, the harder it is to see this back stick going in, which is why this video is one of the harder videos for me to do, because it requires me to fly really very quickly in a very tight, complicated track so that you can see just how much backstick I'm pulling in. And the chances of me being able to talk while I'm doing that are fairly low. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to fly it. I've told you what to look out for, so you're going to see me moving the quad left and right to make the turns, but you should spot the back stick coming in to keep the nose of the quad up, to keep me out of the ground. So I'm just going to fly this track, and I'm going to try and get progressively quicker. It's possible I'll crash while I'm doing it. If I do, I'll carry on, but I'm going to try and fly this track very, very quickly, and you should see that bringing the nose of the quad up in the slalom coming into play.
3, 2, 1.
.01 17.55 14.66 19.16
Okay, so that's the flight, and unfortunately I wasn't able to watch the sticks during that to see whether it was evident as to what was going on here with pulling back, but I could feel myself pulling back on the stick as I flew through that manoeuvre. I'm going to fly the same course again one more time. Again, I'm not going to be able to talk while I'm doing it, and I'm just going to try and fly faster and faster so that you can kind of see what's going on here.
3, 2, 1.
.92 14.28 14.32 16.33
Okay, so that's it for a tight slalom. What I'm going to show you as well is a slightly different flag slalom on another track. So if we go to the quadcopters track in MTC in Day, there's a really quite spread out slalom,
ready to race,
and the slalom here is dealt with in a completely different way, which is why I want to show it to you. So let me just fly this track so you get an idea of how this track works.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, so this is the flag slalom here, down into here, and then that's it for flag slaloms. It's then through the tower. Forgot where I was going.
34.13.
Stop it there, because the important bit was you'll have seen me come through the top here, and then back down through here, and then into this flag slalom. And there are a couple of ways you can fly that particular flag slalom. Now, one of the things I want you to notice about this flag slalom is that the flags are pretty much in a straight line. If you fly down this, that you can see that they're not actually offset from one another particularly. If I just kind of try and fly down this, you can see they're pretty much in a straight line. If you look at it from above here, you can see the flags are really not that much offset. It's kind of a straight line. So the fastest way to fly this is to try to fly it as straight as possible. So rather than trying to fly, let's turn my quality levels up here, rather than trying to fly this, see how I've flown that as a straight line then? So rather than trying to fly it the hard way, which is to try and do these big curves like this with lots of power involved to try and hold me through it, it's actually much faster to fly this, to kind of look at it down low here where the poles of the flag are, and just dodge the poles. So you can see here I haven't really got to turn very much to miss those flags. I can straight line that pretty much and fly it much faster than if you were to try and do all this business flying around, and because you put yourself all out of shape and all out of line for that gate at the end. It's much better to just try and straight line it like that through there and then back. So that's a different type of flag slalom, but I just wanted to show that it's not always the best method to try and fly a curve through these things like this. If it's a bit spread out and you can get away with flying a straight line with just a little jink left and right as you move through it, then that's going to be far quicker. Okay, so that's it for this particular tutorial. As I say, this was much harder to cover because it's very subtle what goes on the stick in a very tight flag slalom, but the key is this pulling back to keep the nose up, to keep you out of the ground, and that will allow you to fly the slalom much more quickly without flying into the ground. Okay, that's it, and I'll see you on the next video.